New York
Hello?
City 911. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
Yeah. There's a guy with a gun at Chick-fil-A in Brooklyn, New York.
What's the address?
Lavish Ave.
Roll your window down.
Keep your hand where I can see you.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Hold it down, sir.
Why are you moving backwards? You're moving backwards. What are you doing? Vehicle in sight. Moving northbound on Lavish Avenue. Right at the corner, right there.
Get out of here.
Get out of here!
Get out of here now.
All right, tonight we're asking our law enforcement experts, how difficult is it to shoot in populated areas? All right, gentlemen, that area was downtown Brooklyn, a place that I know well, went to high school 5 minutes from there, lived near there as well. Very populated area. I think the Barclays Center, which is where the NBA's Nets play. I think there's hockey there as well. So that's a big question. And let me start with you, Donald Schweitzer. How do you determine when to shoot in those populated areas?
Yeah, you know, anytime that you have to shoot in a populated area, it's a tough one to decide to do or not. But the more populated, the even harder it gets, right? You know, in this case, you have all of those pedestrians, all those cars, all the people that you could possibly hit. So, you know, the officers were put into a really tough situation. They receive a call that there's a man with a gun. They see this car crashing into other cars, escaping. They want like heck to stop this person, yet they've got to protect other people. You know, they can't just shoot wildly in there. In some ways, it creates an unfair advantage to the bad guy, because the bad guy doesn't care who they're hurting out there, right? He could crash into people, he could shoot, whatever he wants to do, but it's the officers who are sworn to protect others that has to take that into account. So this was a nightmare for law enforcement. I look at these officers going in between these cars and stuff, and it's really a tough one for them.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Dr. Taylor. When I look at this, I'm like, what would I do under these circumstances? You have essentially a guy with two deadly weapons. He's got this car that he's driving. He doesn't seem to have any problem driving wherever he wants to drive, up on curbs, et cetera, et cetera. You got word that he has a gun. And even making things worse, it looks like there's some tinted windows. You can't really see inside the car, or at least that's how it appears from here. How do you think about this situation and how it was handled?
I think that this individual driving this vehicle has another advantage, and that is that officers are not allowed to fire at vehicles in New York City if the only use of deadly physical force is the vehicle itself. So if he's shooting his weapon out of his car, then that's a different story. So they are at a tactical disadvantage. But I think here that technology may be able to help. I mean, you have aviation, you have helicopters that can give eyes from above. You also have license plate readers if they're able to get that information. And there are even handheld GPS launch devices which can tag a vehicle, which I think might be able to help in this situation where the officers, they have to have their weapons out because the guy allegedly has a gun, but then they are at a disadvantage in terms of using that weapon because, you know, the disadvantage of possibly hurting other people. A lot different than when my granduncle was on patrol in the 7-8 precinct in the 50s and 60s, where there were less technological devices that could be used to help officers in this type of situation.
Yeah, I would imagine less guns on the street too, right? Back at that time, no question about it. Donald, quickly, one of the questions that often comes up in these types of situations is, why wouldn't you just let them go, right? You let them go, you have all the technology, you can track them down.
Well, it's just one of these things that officers aren't trained to do. I mean, they want to protect other people, serve the public. They want to capture bad guys. But I think that we're seeing more and more that there are certain circumstances where they have to do that. In this particular case, it was a tough one, though, because he's crashing into cars. He's got a gun. you know, he was putting other people's lives in jeopardy. And as the doctor indicated, you know, they have to do what they can do with technology. Maybe sometimes it is letting them go and then capturing them later. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is certainly a tough one. But again, that's another one that ended well.